Did you know that the period pads used by millions of women today were actually never meant for women in the first place? So how did this essential product even come to exist? Let's take a step back in time. Imagine an era where even whispering the word period was considered a massive social crime. But then, something happened that changed history forever. Think about it. When Johnson & Johnson introduced Lister's towels, one of the earliest commercially sold disposable menstrual pads, in the late 19th century, what do you think happened? Was it an instant success? Not at all. It struggled to become widely accepted. But why? Why were women so reluctant to buy something so revolutionary? The reason was deep-rooted shame. No woman back then had the courage to look a male shopkeeper in the eye and openly ask for a menstrual product. And there was another problem nobody could simply advertise away. How do you sell something that society expects women to hide? Back then, menstruation wasn't something openly discussed. A woman could walk into a store and ask for soap, medicine, or food. But asking for something specifically for her period could feel completely different. So even if a disposable pad could make her life easier, actually getting one could be its own embarrassing ordeal. And that raises another question. If the first disposable pads struggled so badly, what finally made the idea take off? The real magic started in a place where blood was spilling everywhere, on the terrifying battlefields of World War I. But what on earth does a brutal war have to do with menstrual pads? Well, nurses noticed that new cellulose-based absorbent bandages being used for wounded soldiers could absorb blood much more efficiently than ordinary cotton. The material had been developed as a substitute for scarce cotton supplies, but it turned out to have another surprising advantage. It could soak up large amounts of liquid while remaining relatively lightweight. And that's when an unexpected possibility appeared. Those nurses had a sudden realization. If this highly absorbent material could absorb a soldier's blood, couldn't they use something similar for their own hidden days? And just like that, everything changed. But wait, what happened to all that wartime absorbent material when the war suddenly ended? Was it just thrown away? Or did a clever mind see a hidden gold mine in this military technology? Because the war had created something the company now had far too much of. An absorbent material with almost no obvious civilian future. A company named Kimberly-Clark stepped in. Using the highly absorbent cellulose material it had developed during the war, the company created a brand new menstrual product in 1920 called Kotex. And suddenly, women had another option. They didn't have to depend entirely on homemade reusable materials. They could use something designed to absorb menstrual flow and then dispose of it. That sounds completely ordinary today. But imagine how strange that idea must have seemed at the time. A product you used once and simply threw away. No washing, no drying, no hiding a used cloth somewhere until it could be cleaned. But now, the biggest challenge was still waiting. How do you sell a product that women are too terrified to even name out loud? They came up with a brilliant solution. Stores began making it possible for women to buy Kotex with less embarrassment, including a system where a woman could place her money into a small box and take a package without having to verbally ask for it. No awkward conversation. No having to say exactly what she needed. She could simply pay, take the package, and leave. But even that wasn't the end of the story, because the pads themselves were nothing like the ones women use today. They didn't have the convenient adhesive backing you expect from a modern pad. So another uncomfortable question appeared. How exactly do you keep a pad in place without glue? The answer was a sanitary belt. Instead of sticking the pad directly onto underwear, women wore a belt designed to hold the absorbent material in place. Think about that for a moment. A disposable pad may have been revolutionary, but wearing one could still involve straps, belts, shifting material, and plenty of discomfort. So the invention had solved one problem, but created another. And this is where the story gets even more interesting. The modern pad didn't suddenly appear in 1920. The first disposable products were only the beginning. Over the following decades, menstrual products gradually became easier to use, more discreet, and eventually much closer to what women recognize today. The little adhesive strip underneath your pad? That simple feature completely changed the experience. But it took years before the disposable pad evolved into the thin, convenient product sitting on store shelves today. And when you look at it now, it's easy to forget how unusual the original idea really was. A material created for wartime medical use became connected to one of the most private problems women faced every month. A product that women once struggled to even ask for eventually became something millions could buy without saying a word. But here's the strangest part. The modern pad may have taken shape through wartime technology, but women had been dealing with periods for thousands of years before any company put one in a package. So what on earth were they using? From sheep's wool in Rome to wood shavings in China. What did a woman do when there was no disposable pad, no adhesive strip, and no sanitary belt waiting in a store? The answers are far stranger than you might expect. Subscribe to find out, and let me know in the comments.